This podcast is made in association with Wave Motion Canon. You can contact us on Twitter at warrydeshow or email us at warrydeshow@gmail.com. If you like the show, please rate and review us on iTunes, like, subscribe, follow and share.
悪いでしょう。
Hello everyone and welcome back to Stream of Thought, the only weekly podcast that's actually sponsored by Gold Farmers. With me today...
I'm sorry, that got me. I broke the cardinal rule of not speaking or making a sound until you introduced me, but you caught me off guard with that one.
Well, it's okay. After you've calmed down, I do know someone who can sell you like 10 million World of Warcraft gold for $40 if you want. I mean... He seems like a reliable guy. I mean, he only put 5 keyloggers on my PC. It's fine. But anyway, I am Shaden, your co-host, Big Mouth, Loudmouth, Big Mouth Strikes Again. And with me, of course, as always, is the ever wonderful Mr. Sussel Doctor, MD, PhD, Esquire.
Got him a PhD player-hating degree.
Uh-huh. But what about the game-hating degree? Did you never get that? I thought that was the better way.
I've always been told not to hate the games. The games are lovely snowflakes, entirely innocent in their programming.
Oh,
it's the douchebag players that we have to hate.
Look, right, as a fighting game player, the amount of times I've had that discussion, I could not even count. But we're not here today to talk about gold farmers or fighting games or my lack of hair. None of that.
DP CR 527JHKS.
No. But what we are here today to talk about is recovery of an MMO Junkie. So this is now episode 3, which is called You and I, the Cowards.
It's my autobiography. It's, mine and my brother.
Aw, don't be silly. Don't be silly. Like I thought your autobiography would have been how I became cool before uncool was cool.
That is, I can't even follow what you just did. So, no witty retort.
That's why it would be a New York Times bestseller.
God,
it's always the incomprehensible shit that ends up getting top there. I kid. So this episode. This is where we again start to get more details revealed and more of the incoming setup for the wacky hijinks that we're going to end up with. The opening scene of this episode, or at least a good quarter of it, if not a third of it, is actually about Sakurai and his co-worker Korai, I believe it is. I can't pronounce his name properly. I'm terrible with it.
Man, fuck! I had it. I need to read it real quick.
Uh-oh.
Koiwai. That's what it is.
Koiwai, yes.
Koiwai-san.
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 Koiwai and Sakurai are
all right, I'm going to do... Hang on.
breakup.
I have to do... Here's my best Koiwai impression. All right. Here we go. Mori-mori-chan.
That's actually pretty legit. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty good.
Mori-mori-chan.
Oh my god. I hope you never ever refer to your wife as Annie-Chan.
Oh my gosh. She would, there would be what I could only describe as a withering stare.
Those are the worst. Those are the absolute worst. Like, if looks could kill, I mean, ow. Okay, don't ever do that. Not even as an act, not even by accident.
I mean, like, not to digress too much, but whenever... I do it now just to get on her nerves, but whenever I just even do the weebish thing of using the term baka in everyday discourse.
Oh my god.
She just looks at me like I might be something found on the bottom of her shoe. And now I do it just to receive that look because it makes me happy.
No, the true tech would be if she just literally went, Baka! That's how you pronounce it. Get it right. I thought you were a weeb. God damn it. So, Sakurai and Kowai, they're enjoying a nice, lovely slap-up meal on their lunch break. It looks actually like a place I would really like to go to eat, come to think of it. Not to mention that they serve their beers in giant steins, which is always like instant, yes please, 10 out of 10 TripAdvisor rating from me. Like, I love beer in steins. It's so good. But anyway, so this is where we actually get introduced to one of the few, if only, characters who, so far that we know of, does not actually have an online persona, which is Kowai. And we also get introduced to his relationship with Sakurai, his co-worker, and it's very much a... Sakurai, I think, is senior to Kowai, or at the very least is very close to being as senior as him, but Kowai absolutely ribs him constantly.
I think Kowai is his, is his senior. He's sort of studying under him.
Kowai absolutely has the relationship on lockdown between the two of them. It's constant ribbing. Sakura-chan.
Sakura-chan, that's so good. Yes, I love it. That he calls him Sakura, is so amazing.
Yeah, mocking him having a feminine name and not realizing what, he gets up to in MMO. I mean, I imagine if Kowai ever found out that Sakurai played a female character and a female character looked like Lily, that would be him, striking gold right there. That would be a button he would push every single day, and he would never stop pushing it.
What if the boy with brown hair from the flashback was Kowai-san? I don't think...
Are you making bets now as much as I am?
I want it to be Sakurai. I'm sure that they'll either leave it as vague or outright say that it's Sakurai. Wait. But
you could be right because we'll find out later on. But Sakurai mentions as Lily that he met someone precious in a game.
Yep.
That he doesn't get to speak to. Oh my god. I don't know if I'd be happy with that because that feels way too coincidental.
It sure does. I mean, this entire show
rests on its
is so many coincidences, but I do agree with what you're saying that's the next level up of coincidence. That is just that's where you start getting where this seems pretty contrived.
This is fate.
But yeah, hopefully it is left as vague. What if it was Kowai? That would just be, Kowai. That would be ridiculous.
I don't want it. I think that if we're to just address this topic now, if I were to write this, I would not have the identity of Moriko's former MMO friends be revealed at all.
Yeah.
I would have them simply exist as they do now, where they were positive influence, but for reasons that, like I said in the previous episode, sometimes you don't need to be too specific, were left unsaid as to why they drifted apart. I mean, I can attest to the fact that, regrettably, people did, over time, leave World of Warcraft when I was playing it. I, in turn, left because I got sick of the game. I got bored of it. And I somewhat regret that, to be quite honest, because the people who I were with, when we were all together in that guild on the Horde side, all great people. There were one or two Muppets who caused a fair bit of drama because they were 12-year-old, impudent, prepubescent man-children, but, there's always going to be a bad apple in a group. But a lot of those people were really, really great. And I can certainly sympathize with Moriko's perspective of looking back on those people that I knew and having very fond memories of them. I mean, I discussed that in the very first episode. But, as is also attested by Sakurai Plays, I mean, I'm admittedly jumping ahead narratively here, but I think it's important to address this. Sakurai as Lily makes a very valid point that although that happened then with the person that he felt was precious, he's open to the idea of meeting new people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's important to value the relationships and the memories you have with people you don't necessarily speak to anymore, but also be open-minded to who you can meet tomorrow. Who knows who you might bump into or who you might suddenly encounter. I mean, there's a scene later on in this episode, in which Moriko is visiting the same supermarket again that she had done previously and is buying more Fruits de Mer money, digital money. And she's taking it to the counter. She speaks and says hello to the counter attendant, who I don't know if... Has it been revealed yet who he is? No, it hasn't actually, no.
We have not met him. Also, you did not pronounce the game name correctly.
I am so sorry. Fridemir. No.
Fridemir. Fridemir.
Sounds like if I did that any better, I reckon I could make that into a decent Rammstein song, but, well, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, the thing that I was going to mention, though, is that he has previously noted, being an attentive person he is, that she was picking up through Demare money. And he sees it again and is about to talk to her about it, but then gets interrupted because there's a customer behind, so obviously he can't have a elongated chat with her about it while this other gentleman's waiting to be served. But proves my point, though. You never know who you might meet who might share more similar interests than you might realize.
And Moriko in that scene, or Morioka, doesn't really know. It's like she sort of understands that something happened, but she doesn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
It made me, like, at first my reaction was like, gosh, people are so dense sometimes. But then it just, I don't know, made me think like, well, I mean, we just have this nice advantage of the God's eye point of view.
Yeah.
But when you're in those shoes, when you're inserted into that scenario and you have the point of view of a person in it, perhaps it is more difficult to notice when someone is trying to or wanting to meet you or talk to you or whatever. So like, it just made me like sort of think like, well, I should be more outgoing, because there's probably like a lot of times where people are trying to engage with me, but there are these other factors that come up where they feel like they can't, especially if I'm not plugged in and engaged. So it made me feel at first it made me think, why are you so dense? And then I took a moment to have some empathy.
Yeah. I have a different take on that scene, but I'll come back to that in a bit when we reach it narratively. Okay. Admittedly, it is a take that is arguing from the null hypothesis, which is to say that I'm arguing because that this is a thing because of something we haven't actually explicitly been seen or told. But anyway, we'll get to that soon enough. Back, however, to, happy fun times with Sakurai getting bullied the fuck out of by Kawai. So Sakurai actually starts speaking to Kawai because he realizes that he recognizes where Morioka was from, where she worked previously, and it turns out to be a business that Kawai is familiar with. So he says, "Did you know this person?" And then shows him a technical manual. I don't know why he brought that with him or printed it out. He could have just literally said. But
I know. It's because Sakurai is such a nerd. He's so like thorough and straightforward and like going to like he is together. I mean, the fact that he didn't have his business card with him, you could tell the anxiety, like, because he's supposed to have his business cards with him in the last episode.
Supposed to be composed.
So like the fact that like he's just gonna ask about a person. No, he's gonna bring like a paper clipped report of stuff he dug up on them, which I think is reflected in his online personality too. Lily being as straightforward and earnest as she is.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I just think that it's regrettable that he didn't end up having a career choice as a detective. He would nail people to the wall with the amount of detail he whips out. Like, mild-mannered and good-natured as he is, like, I wasn't there at this time. Actually, yes, you were, and you were smoking a cigarette. I have the butts right here.
Tokyo Noir for the Nintendo Switch.
If there was a sequel series to this which involved Moriko and Sakurai, like, doing their own, like, good cop, bad cop routine, I would totally watch the fuck out of that. That would be amazing. Just a silly spin-off. Great, do it. Let's go.
So, tell me about your dad.
Right. Okay, so Sakurai tells Kawai about this, and Kawai remembers who Morioka is. And this, of course, then leads to the wonderful double-barreled nickname of Mori Mori-chan. If someone called me Jojo-chan, I think I would probably strangle them. So, God bless Morioka for having the patience, but we then get a flashback. And this is actually Kawai's flashback, so when he's ringing Morioka's office at 11 at night, asking to look at some documents. And a couple of interesting things happen here. So, Morioka, answers the phone in place of someone else who should be there. And she's very apologetic, very I'm so sorry, I really feel bad for this poor woman because she has a very strong guilt complex. She's very self-depreciating. Yeah. And I think this very much ties into how we see her finally cut loose a little bit when she's actually playing the game and is finally allowed to be herself. Mm-hmm. I mean, never mind. They actually make pains with that technical manual I mentioned to point out that she's very good at what she does. She's very good at her job. So it's not a case of her being incompetent and being yelled at all the time because she's crap. She does a good job. So what happens next is that she starts actually crying over the phone when speaking to Kowai. We don't really get much indication of why this is, other than it's awful to hear. Like, I have to give props to the voice actress here. I mean, again, I can't intone Japan. I can't understand Japanese for crap. I mean, I can say Gamenasai, and I can say arigato, but I still can't say not guilty yet, so that's going to stop me from going to Japan anytime soon. But she does a very good job of sounding like really like distress, like, well, not so distressed, but like emotional, like she's just barely holding back. She's still trying to be professional while still letting the dam burst a little bit.
Yeah.
Kowai reacts with his usual well-spirited self, like, and he teases her a little bit, but he doesn't go all in on her. He doesn't and he isn't like overly sincere either. But I found this scene really telling for one reason. So, you remember before how there was that assertion of real life is real life and online is online?
Mm-hmm.
So, they're having a phone conversation here in which neither of the two of them have ever met before. In fact, until at this point, they still haven't met each other. At least not from what we understand so far in the anime. They don't know what, like, each other looks like or anything like that. Does this not strike you as being slightly similar to the interactions in the game itself, in that this is people not being physically present with each other and then allowing them to be more honest with themselves?
Yeah.
And I think, again, this is another example of the show conflating the real life, online thing. Because poor Mariko, like, only when she's actually speaking to someone on the phone that she has never met before, who, for all she knows, could be an entirely different part of the country, who could probably not give less of a shit about what she has to say other than just getting the documents done, she weeps a little bit. She's finally allowed a moment just to try and express herself. Like, she feels like now that she's not in the physical presence of someone, she can actually cut loose a little bit and speak to them.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe just emote a little bit.
You know, what you're saying now made me think of a non-MMO video game called Soma. Have you ever played Soma?
I know of it. It's a horror game, isn't it?
It is. The horror parts are not the good parts of the game are the science fiction and the world building stuff. And to be very brief, a lot of that game deals with transhumanism, insofar as like consciousnesses of flesh and blood people being carried over into robots. There is a character who you get I forget how, but you sort of get the impression that like she was maybe a bit like Morioka when she was a human, but when she talks about her consciousness being in a computer, she talks about how freeing it is. Like, she's just sort of like, it's kind of like being a human, but I feel so much more at ease. Like, I felt uncomfortable in my own skin. You know, I felt, more just something about physical presences and physical contact was like nerve-wracking or off-putting, and she just felt so much more herself and more able to better interact with people when she wasn't in her physical body.
Yeah.
And in a very sort of long way around way of relating to this, like the interaction here between Koiwai and Morioka, and then between Hayashi and the other characters in the game on the part of the people playing them, I don't know, like, it's just interesting to think about interactions with other people kind of through these mediums of technology, and how for some people the non-physical nature of the interactions is like freeing for them.
Very liberating, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, there's a very obvious and unfortunately negative example of this in the online trolling. I feel very confidently, I know this is entirely anecdotal, but I feel very confidently that take your average online troll, someone who starts spewing abuse at you online for whatever reason that might be. I very strongly get the feeling that a lot of these people, the vast majority of them, would never, ever say that to your face in the same circumstances, even if they had already said it to you online and knew it was you there in person. I've had blistering arguments with people online. They've never said the similar thing to my face since then. And I have to confess, I found it difficult to simply say to people in person, you're being a twat. But I have then done so online to them after the fact. And I'm ashamed of that fact not of the fact that I did call them a twat, because in the cases that I happened, I felt and I'm saying I felt because I'm not, of course, going to put objective measurement on this, but I felt it was deserved. But I felt it was also the more mature thing to actually have said it in person and treat them with that, because it's true that in communication, body language actually is the majority of what's important. Like, I can't remember the exact figure, but I know for certain that when you're talking with someone, if you take the body language element away, it actually does more than taking the actual words away.
Yeah, I think it's between 80 and 85% of communication is nonverbal.
It's a very, very high number. So obviously, when you're dealing with an MMO or the phone, you'll lose that out. And for some people, maybe that causes a message to be lost, but in other cases, maybe it allows them to be more liberated in what they say and how they act.
Yeah, perhaps there's just so much stimuli with the body language that it's overwhelming.
Absolutely. I think, again, like with this example, maybe I'm reading getting too much into this, maybe it's just a simple phone conversation. But again, we have an interaction that's not between people physically present, much as with the game. And I think that helps not only to illustrate that Morioka, like, doesn't really relate to people in person, but also it again conflates the game world with the real one and shows the equivalence of the social interactions there. It doesn't matter what method you use to communicate, be it in person, be it phone, be it that, as long as you can at least talk and let your feelings out.
Yeah.
Lily Sakurai makes a very big point of this on multiple occasions with how she says, I like to come here and talk to Tree. I don't really have anyone I can vent to online or in person for that matter. I think it is important. I mean, we've discussed this at length on other times, like with the Orange Cast, for example, that we did, of how important it is to be able to have people talk to each other. And I think in some cases, it's very natural to be afraid of doing so. So for Morioka, just having this random guy who she's never spoken to before, just for a moment to let the barrier drop and just let herself be emotive and let herself unbottle some of what's bothering her, I think that's very telling. The scene, however, then concludes with us coming back, and that's how Kawai met her. And he actually shows a picture of her when she was dressed in a work uniform, with her hair tied up to Sakurai. So they head their separate ways. Now, what then follows is we actually have Morioka then walking through town to go to the supermarket, and she's having it in a monologue. And I thought this was the scene that you mentioned before where she goes to the supermarket. So you recall how I said I had an interpretation on this scene, how I had a theory?
Mm-hmm.
So Morioka is giving herself a lot of encouragement in her head over what's happened.
She thinks she's nailed it, sending the email to the reply to Sakurai, yeah.
Yeah. But it made me think, has she ever had anyone actually say that to her, like in person?
Right.
This is why I'm saying about arguing from the null hypothesis here, because there's no proof that she ever wasn't just active. This is the issue I mentioned in the other episode where I feel we might need to have the work issues fleshed out a bit more. Not to the point where she's dissected like live on air, like we get to the absolute core of her and understand every nook and cranny. Mystery is sometimes just as much as important as is understanding every intricate detail of a character.
Are you saying that this show should continue to employ the Dark Souls method of storytelling?
We're done. We're done. You're the one mentioning Dark Souls, and yet it's I who have died. I will be at the campsite. I hate you. This is the end of Warrior Desho. Thanks, folks. Good night.
Ba-dunk.
Okay, no, sod that. Let's crack on. Okay, so my point is, though, I think that Morioka's she's had what to her is a victory, even though it's to us a very token one. I mean, how many emails do you send a day, Doc? A lot, I would suspect.
A lot.
I send a lot. Now, admittedly, they're probably not of the nature that Morioka said, but hers was just an apologetic thing to a guy. That's it. But
yeah, and just at one point she says she can't believe she got an email asking her out.
Yeah,
which is incredible. To me, I mean, I guess like those words strictly and literally interpreted, like perhaps that's not a common method of asking one out, but in the context of the show, it just seems like, as you were saying, like, man, she just has not had anyone pay her mind at all, and that's just it's deeply sad.
But then, flashback to episode 1, who is the character who is encouraging her for the very first real encouragement she gets when she goes into Fruits of Air. Yeah, exactly. So, again, I thought that was telling that maybe she... But again, I'm arguing from absence of evidence rather than seeing it, and I prefer to see things rather than presume otherwise. But anyway, so we have that scene, and then we flick back after the break. And this is where Mariko, as Hayashi, is speaking with one of the other guild members, whose name is Poyo. He's the Asterix-looking dopey guy with the giant button nose. He's pretty cool. I like him.
Yeah.
And they're having a discussion about things. And at that point, Hayashi receives a gift. And call me wrong here. Maybe I'm incorrect on this, but did the outfit that Hayashi received look an awful lot like... God, what was that spineless twerp's name from Sword Art Online again? What was his name? What was
Kirito.
Oh, yeah, that shithead. That was him, right. Yeah, that guy. The guy I want to punch repeatedly. All right. Was it just me, or did that robe that he received look an awful like...
it does. It does.
I'm so unhappy about that fact. I already made my one joke of Sword Art mom line, and already I felt tainted by making it, not least which is a bad joke, but that's beside the point.
No, you take that back. It's a glorious joke.
But now I have to associate with that. I'm just like, bleh. Sword Art Online is a discussion for another day, but let's just put it this way.
The trim is gold, and in SAO, the trim is either white or silver. So there's a little bit of a, distinction.
Yeah.
The finest of...
You know, I have to just very briefly segue on this, right? I hate Sword Art Online for many reasons, but you know what's really telling? I only got as far as episode 8. I then decided to read the Cliff Notes summary of what happens next in Sword Art Online.
Man,
at that point.
You didn't even get to the horrendous parts.
It skips 2 years! And when I read that it skips 2 years between episode 8 and episode 9, and they still haven't got him out of the MMO world, I was just like, fuck you. Fuck you. Who wrote this? You've pissed away the concepts already, and now you say that they can't get them out or find the guy who's doing this in 2 years? The fuck is this shit? You're not looking for fucking Amelia Earhart? The fuck are you doing? Write a good story, you twat! Okay, rant over. Back to topic. So Hayashi, Marioka that is, gets rather, angsty about this because they don't know if she can actually accept this gift. Because Moriko seems to very much see this gift-giving process like we previously, as in, you've done this to me, I must go do something back for you. It's like the mutually assured gifting, shall we say, escalating constantly. And...
Did it strike you as a parallel to the email situation?
Now that you've mentioned it, yes.
They sort of have a chance to do it in real life and then do it online because... Unfortunately, in real life, she took the good advice Morioka did that she got, and I guess in being so kind and polite, to sort of say no, I couldn't accept anything more from you. You've already done so much for me. She was just being. She was just doing the right thing in her mind, you know what I mean? In her mind, she didn't reject Sakurai. I think she's still into him. And of course, it's interpreted on the other side as, you got turned down, sorry. And
yeah,
that really sucks. It makes me hate communication via text message.
Or any sort of thing. I mean, it's so often that people can find themselves at 90-degree angles where maybe they wouldn't have hooked up anyway, but they would have come to a better understanding of why, as opposed to just the different interpretations that they have. And it is a shame. But anyway, so at this point, Poyo mentions to Morioka that he relates a tale of how he dealt with a similar situation with a previous guild member. And he says, be careful just in case there are any ulterior motives. Now, Moriko, the moment she reads those 2 words, all the alarm bells go off in her head. We're at DEFCON 1 here. And I would sort of get that were it not for the fact that, again, the gender roles don't automatically suggest it's going that way. I don't know. It seems like she's reading a lot into it. But again, Moriko... as is shown many times in this anime, overthinks every social interaction of note or like import to her. Like when she's talking with Poyo, like she's obviously not that close to Poyo as she is with Lily, so she doesn't think about it too much there. But as we learn in just a moment, in the one of the greatest social faux pas I've ever seen that didn't actually make me want to kill the person who did it.
Man.
Hayashi finds Lily at the tree again, and they have a talk. And Lily's like, "Did you turn it down because it was not to your taste?" And Hayashi fumbles like a bit of it, and then at that moment, Moriko, we cut to her in her room, and she says in her head, "Oh God, what do I say? What do I say? Ding. Oh, do you have any ulterior motives?" That's the sound. That's the sound of the world's most like you fucked up golf clap ever. Like, oh my God. Then that happened. I'm not gonna lie. The first time I watched that, I had to pause. I had to stand up because I really want Moriko to succeed, but I can't abide self-sabotaging behavior like that. Like that's this is not just like speaking with your inner voice. This is speaking with your inner voice in a communication method that allows you to check before you say it. You can still take it back once you've put it out there. It's a two-step thing. Like, if I spoke with my inner voice in front of someone I hated and said, "God, I think he's a prick," I can't stop that from going, I can't then take that back. But in this case, she types it out and then hit the enter button and saw it being typed out as she was thinking it. And I just can't fucking believe it.
She has no filter.
Yeah. So Moriko manages to dial it back, though, thankfully. And at that point, Lily opens up a little bit with what's happened with her previously. And this is really interesting, because bear in mind that Lily is being played by Sakurai, who's a guy. So I, again, have seen many times where support classes get, given shit for all sorts of reasons. In my experience with World of Warcraft, I've seen fellow guild members relate to like how they had tried to do pickup groups with people who were just fucking useless, and as a result they got yelled at and all that. Some of the women who played female characters, they got like sent like, "Oh, you're so pretty" and all that shit, like just generally harassed and bothered. And God bless Sakurai for building such a grade A waifu. I really probably shouldn't say that. That sounds like I'm objectifying her when I'm just.
Well, that's what we see in the dialogue bubbles.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that people are saying.
Yeah, well, maybe I shouldn't be so blasé about it. But rather, let's just say that he's designed Lily too well, shall we say? Because everyone's
made a very cute anime girl. He
has, and as a result of that, he gets badgered all the time, either for healing, because he's also playing a support role, which is that like. That's like playing a cute female character and playing a healer in an MMO. Like that's like going out naked into the woods, only wrapped in a bacon loincloth and just throwing yourself at the wolves. It's just not going to end well. And
do wolves like bacon?
It's pork.
Probably.
So I'd assume
they probably dig it.
So. What happens then is that she ends up speaking to the guildmaster for advice, and the guildmaster, he says, "Well, why don't we become partners?" Now, I'm going to ask for your opinion on this, Dog. In the context of this show, does partner mean as in buddy, or as in romantically involved when they say that?
Oh, I think it's some kind of game relationship that has to do with that the characters are linked. I don't think it's romantic. I think it's some other kind of game relationship link. But I mean, it clearly still is significant. People aren't just partnering up with people randomly, and it means something to Lily and Hayashi, and it meant something to Lily for Kanbei to offer that. He said, "Well, you're getting harassed. Just be my partner," and you can kind of hide in that way.
So the reason I asked that though is because, speaking from my own experience here, I don't think just simply saying that you're buddies with someone would stop the harassment. I think it's not an effective tactic. Whereas I actually did know in my guild a guy and a girl who were married who played together a lot. Well, guy played a tank. It was a Tauren tank. He was a very good tank, as a matter of fact, and the lady played a very good healer as well. Female troll healer she was. They were great people, by the way. I wish I still knew them and still as contact, but I'll not get morose about that. So I don't see how that wouldn't, as given as a buddy, that would stop that fight. And now, I'm not saying, of course, that when the guildmaster says to be a partner, if it was meant as a romantic thing, that they would legitimately mean that, but it would just be a facade.
Right.
And if it was a facade, it actually would tie back into a lot of what's happening elsewhere with the fact that every character in this thing is a facade in one way or another, a illusion, shall we say. So they're building things on top of things. Like, we already have the lie that Morioka gave of her age and what she does. Not intentionally, she just fumbled it. But then we've got this whole, partners thing coming on top of it. And maybe it is a buddy thing only, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I assumed, and, this could be me reading into it, but from the way that the characters kind of reacted around it, it seemed to me like there was some sort of in-game functionality that's not necessarily like one-to-one map to WoW. Like, perhaps like if you are partnered up, then you're not publicly shown as like available to party up with and go on quests.
Could very well be the case. I mean, for a start, Through Demare is certainly a lot more pleasant than WoW was at times. Like, some of the stuff I saw in that was just unpleasant, shall we say. Then again, that's any online environment. I mean, I regularly go on Twitter, and that's a complete cesspit, so hey, there we go. So yeah, not exclusive to MMOs. Anyway, it's a moot point in the end, because what happens then is that Lily, right on cue with the weather effects, like it was planned, with the wind sweeping, just...
So good.
She
good.
Turns over and says, Hayashi, would you like to be my partner? And Morioka's reaction, again, credit to her voice actress here, she yells out, Lily-san, but she says it in such a way as if, no, I'm not ready. I can't take this. Morioka's voice actress, absolute props to her for handling this role as well as she does, going from, being really sad and emotional and, withdrawn to outright screaming, at the top of her head about the most minor shit, having the most reactive voice ever. She's got range, and she's using it brilliantly to great effect.
I loved her just rolling around in the bed,
yeah,
sad, and then happy, and it was wonderful.
Actually, I need to backtrack a little and mention something that I completely neglected when we were discussing the scene with Poyo. When Moriko has this, fantasy in her head of a present she would give to Lily, and it's drawn in the most bishonen, way imaginable. It's glorious.
It's amazing. It looks like...
It reminds me of Berserk a little bit. The drawings, the still frames.
Yeah, it reminded me of Rose of Versailles. Much more, in shoujo style. And it's funny because and then... the other guy is oh no, your ideas of masculinity are infecting mine, whenever his visions start to become like Hayashi's. And I guess that's because maybe they're saying well, this typical male guy here, they're not going to think of masculinity in terms of the way that comics for girls depict it. Because that's the way it came across to me, a very very old kind of shoujo comics, which is really, that was superb. I agree. It really was funny.
It was great. And so to cut back though, Hayashi of course accepts. He puts on the robe that Lily gave him. Lily has already put on a matching robe, actually, as well, which is rather sweet. One really nice detail that I liked here, by the way, there's a panning shot of, the two of them, both in frame, looking at each other. You can see that Lily is wearing the crystal rose that was given to her in episode 1.
Yes.
I adore little details like that, things that are not, explicitly pointed out. Like the fact, again, I mentioned before, that Moriko's character Hayashi has blue hair, much as her other character did in the previous MMO. The carryover, the lingering identity that continues on. Small details like that texture interactions and show like the value of what that means to Lily. Like, I'm wearing this now as part of my outfit with the one that I've now got here. Yes, please, more of that.
That was amazing. I loved that too.
I love little bits of world building like that. It's so important, like you just put in little details. But poor Moriko, like, she freaks out something fierce over this because she's so overjoyed. She feels like she has a crush, but she doesn't. Like, she's confused. Like, I think it's just like she just genuinely has not felt so strongly about someone in such a long time. Someone who cares about her like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's very telling, actually. To just quickly segue onto the items in her apartment. There are two things that Moriko has that she uses in this episode. One of which is the cat alarm clock when she's doing the pretend, presenting the gift. And how gutting is that you actually don't even have a real cat, but you have a facsimile of one? Like, having a pet, like, if you're a single person, I think can be a great source of comfort if ever you're lonely. At least have a living, breathing presence in your home with you.
Yeah.
As someone who lived by himself in a flat for 3 years with no pets allowed, I can safely say that place, small as it was, felt very large and very empty at times. And it was certainly more heavily populated with furniture than Lily's was. Sorry, not Lily's, Moriko's is.
Right.
And then there's the hug pillow that she has. Like, I think, like, goofy as that is, I think that's actually very telling about what she really wants. She wants maybe not intimacy, like, full on, nookie all the time. Like, I'm talking more like just someone to hold.
Yeah.
Even though she's absolutely petrified of handling, like, that situation with Sakurai in person. And the fact that she found, like, the couples thing stifling in episode 1 around Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
She just wants some comfort, like, just someone that she can hold or hug. So, the fact that she did that immediately after that thing with Lily where they became partners, I think there's, again, a marrying over. There's a crossover here of behaviour and feeling and what it means to her. But otherwise, once that wraps up, that's pretty much the end of the episode.
That was beautifully put, by the way.
I do have my moments.
That was great. I yes, totally concur.
Kudos also to the 4 guild members for hiding behind the same tree and not getting spotted.
Oh my god. Yes.
That was great. But yeah, that's the end of episode 3. So we've learned more about Morioka. We've learned more about Sakurai's own history online. We've got introduced to Kokai. A lot's happened in this one. I think for what has so far only been 3 episodes, this show really does feel like it crams a lot in. I mean, I've had to rewatch this a couple of times to make sure I've covered all the points. I'm still concerned I've missed things out.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you've seen it 3 times. And the fact that you're not bored to tears is, that's pretty awesome.
It certainly loses its luster on a rewatch, but everything does. There's not a show on this planet that never remains totally fresh on and on. But I think it's also important just again to try and catch details you might have missed, because clearly the show's interested in showing off little things. Yes, and those are important.
Yes. Exactly.
So, what was your overall feeling on this episode, Doc?
Well, before we move to the wrap-ups, I wanted to say that I thought that this episode, there was a couple things that stuck out. Like, it really captured very, very well the feeling of finishing up some stressful stuff, like maybe a long week at work, or an appointment you were dreading, a meeting, some kind of big, looming, anxiety-inducing task of finishing that. And that's done, and just coming home. How refreshing that is and comforting, and not just coming home, but playing video games.
I can absolutely 100% get behind that.
I felt it since I was a kid. Have had those times where, oh my God, this horrible thing that I've known I've had to do for a long time, like, it's fucking over. And now I don't have to worry about shit anymore. And I can just go home, crash, and like play Secret of Mana for 5 hours.
You know, you're exactly right. It's one of my great pleasures always to just, like with this show actually, would you believe it, right? This show airs at 4 o'clock GMT every Friday. I finish work every day at 3:45. So on a Friday, get home, get a 4-pack of beer in, maybe a snack or two, and I put this show on, and no matter how awful, how wretched my day might have been, I don't usually have bad days. Like, if I have bad days, they're just usually a load of random shit coming together. Like, it's not because I hate the job or anything. But if ever I've had a bad day, I can just kick back, crack open a beer, much like Morrigo does. God bless that woman for loving lager, by the way. She's got good taste.
Yes.
But crack open a beer, I'll put this show on, and everything that bothered me throughout the day up until that point just evaporates like it didn't mean shit. And it's so true. That just the little rituals, the things you do for yourself, just to keep yourself sane and make yourself feel comfortable, they're so important. I mean, not this anime, but Scum's Wish, which I watched earlier this year. One of the things that you might find bizarre that I took away from that was there's a scene in which Mocha, the little princess girl, like goes through her routine of like getting herself like a proper like breakfast of tea and toast every morning. And it culminates with like a still image of her like eating the toast, and it's all like drawn very pastel-y, and she looks like she's having utter bliss. And I took away from that? I was like, if you've got a little thing that you love to do, like maybe you play video games when you get home, maybe you have a raid in World of Warcraft every so often with your guild mates, and you enjoy it, and it takes you out of the things that stress or bother you, treasure that. Make it religious, make it something that you do and enjoy. I watch certain films at certain times of the year because they're great to watch those times, because they're part of like my re-consuming culture. I watched The Thing at Halloween, I watched Die Hard at Christmas, I watched Terminator 2 on my birthday. Like, if you've got a little ritual you like to do, you fucking do it, I say. And you love it.
For sure. And that this all ties in with the next thing briefly was going to bring up, just that Hayashi is talking to, I cannot remember the man's name that we talked about, has the green top knot, and he's a portly fellow.
Oh, do you mean Poyo?
Yes. Talking to Poyo, and Poyo is saying, like, so all this stuff was happening in your real life, and we were worried it was going to make you log off. And Hayashi says, on the contrary, like, games are my salvation. Like, that's when I need them the most, is when my real life gets out of control. Like, I see them as, like you said, something that keeps me sane, and not like a disposable hobby. Just like, well, real life is coming through. Like, let me, I'll put this away for a few months or years or whatever. And it just made me reflect on the fact that, since I was a kid, like how far kind of games have come in terms of being integrated into our lives and our culture. They are that for so many people. Like, they're stress relief. They are ritual to calm. They are like so much more than like, getting a high score or, fucking around with friends. Like, they are that too, and that's great. But I think that they have become like a meaningful media. And not that they always weren't, but I just think they have proliferated to the degree and have been around long enough that, they've really integrated themselves, again, to use that word, into our lives, and I just think that that's really neat.
I agree. Like, someone once said to me, right, actually, on my Curious Cat, I'm wanting to go to a fighting game tournament for the first time, and I'm really shy, and I'm worried, like, what advice would you have for it? And I quote, a shitbag like me. That's not me. That's not me embellishing. That's what they wrote. Now, maybe they meant that sarcastically. It's text. It's not the easiest thing to infer. I didn't even know who this person was because it was submitted anonymously. But the thing I said to him first is that by actually going, you've already jumped the biggest hurdle of it because you're on common ground. Like, people like make distinctions in fighting games, like, between communities like Street Fighter communities, Tekken communities, etc. End of the day, if you play a fighting game, you're part of the fighting game community. And that's the common ground you start with. That makes, in my mind, everyone friends automatically. Like, it's at least the icebreaker that happens without you even having to do anything. You step into the tournament where that's being held, ice is broken, job done. So, games can indeed be the glue that brings people and communities together. I mean, I've recently been witness to a lot of drama in the community about, games should be totally about competitive. I'm not here to make friends. And I'm the person who said that.
Well,
and he knows who he is because he's a shithead, and I told him to grow up. He came across about that particular opinion very arrogantly and very much like very elitist, like, fuck off, I'm not interested in, all that. I, for my part, again, to come back to World of Warcraft, I don't really remember much about the individual raids I did. I know I did one where we did a really tough boss, like we were the first group on the guild on the server to do it. That to me means nothing relative to the memories I still carry of all the good interactions I had with people. And I think that, for games like that bring people together like that, and just even just get people talking. Hell, let's go back to the anime. There's this very scene where the shop assistant wants to talk to her about it, but doesn't get the chance to. They never would have talked with us otherwise, but not for that common element.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that speaks for itself, to be quite honest.
Absolutely. But yeah, to get back to what you asked me before, my overall thoughts were that this episode was really great. I think it was a bit meatier in that I feel like more happened and we got more information, whether it was directly or indirectly communicated to us about the people and the world they inhabit and how they're feeling. And I was into it. Great episode, kept up the good vibes, the laughs. I'm going to give it 4 black Kirito coats out of 5.
Nice. I am pretty much the opinion that it continues the pace. It was meatier again. I think I have to be cautious, though, of perhaps reading too much into stuff. Like, a lot of the things I've said in the discussion here, I don't know if necessarily intentional. That's always the minefield that you run. I mean, you said yourself, though, that you're always down for interpretation by audience, but to give you an example, in Star Trek 2009, random example, but this makes sense, right? Kirk is doing the Kobayashi Maru test, and he's eating an apple. And people who watched that film, who were Star Trek fans, were like, oh, wait, that's a reference back to when he eats an apple in Wrath of Khan, the second film. But on the actual DVD commentary, the writers were asked this, and they said, no, we just put an apple in there because it would be cool to have meat and apple, not because it actually was a callback. So I'm trying to be cautious about this reading.
Well, I think that does, in my opinion, that doesn't matter. We could get into this is a whole huge side discussion about authorial intent and how much it matters, if it matters at all, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, I think that just the fact that you got to think about it and the things were there for you to interpret is valuable in and of itself, regardless of whether or not the show might be trying to say those things.
Yeah.
I think that matters far less.
Sure. But I'm certainly also in favour of the idea that I think that scenes should be constructed to have meaning to them just beyond being there.
Yes.
Like, if a character walks from one place to another, I'm not asking for it to be, like, incredibly deep, like Mariana Trench level of deep meaning and symbolism, but I'm asking it for just be, like, for this scene is this person walks from this place, and I don't then want the scene to also then just mean this person walks from this place.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be this person walks to this place, and something else happens that's relevant. Like, take the crystal rose I mentioned, little detail like that, the blue hair, the self-congratulating that Morioka gives herself like when she's going through the supermarket. I think there is a lot going on in this show, and I'm hoping and praying that it's all building up to like a giant, grand satisfying conclusion. But the problem is when you're stacking a house of cards this big, it looks impressive, but if you want to keep stacking it higher, it's going to be harder for it to keep together. So I'm hoping, but for the moment, I'm going to give this episode 4.5 limp rollers out of 5.
Excellent.
So with that, folks, that is another stream of thought now ended. Thank you all very much for listening. If you do have any thoughts on the show and what we've discussed so far, we're more than happy to hear in the comments. You can hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Shaden1010. The doc is at the Sussel Doctor, because if there's any other Sussel Doctors out there, they're fakes, they're frauds, they're phonies. They don't even have a medical license. No. Lock them up.
Even if they're verified, that's not me, man.
No, that doesn't count. That blue badge is worth jack.
It just means they're a Nazi doctor.
Oh.
And you don't want to be hanging out with Nazi doctors.
Thank you all very much for listening. We'll be back very soon with episode 4 and episode 5. And until then, embrace each other, everyone, to the ends of the universe.
Mwah.
またね。